Welcome back. It is the Dr. Cloud Show, and it is time for you to do something. I mean, there's a number of things you can do on this program. You could turn it off, which is, I don't want you to do that. Then I'll be here all by my lonesome. Or you could listen and learn from other people's experiences, or you could be the one that shares your experiences, because that is how we learn on this show. And that means this is a call-in program. And so you get to call in and you get to tell us about what's going on with you, and we get to learn from it. So in case you want to, let me start out with the number. The number is 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774, 844-940-2774 to get on the program and talk to me. We talk about stuff on this show. Stuff that's in your head and stuff in your relationships and stuff that people are doing to you and stuff for dysfunctional folks out there. And then sometimes we have to see the dysfunctional folk is in here, which means that we all have some issues, right? And you know what? Oftentimes it's our own issues that get us embroiled with the issues of other people. One of my favorite verses says, guard your heart, for from it flow the issues of life. It actually says, guard your heart with all diligence, for from it flow the issues of life. Now think about that. We better be with diligence. And this is what the awakened life is about. People have written about this for millennia, right? The unexamined life is not worth living. I think it was, Albie, I need philosophy help here. I think that was Aristotle that said that.
Sounds
anyway,
like Plato. Yeah.
Plato, maybe Plato. Somebody said, dude, you better look at yourself because you're going to get in trouble if you don't. And so we have to look at how we get hooked by people, how we respond to even bad treatment when you're not doing anything wrong. We do all that here. 844-940-2774. 2774 is a number. One quick announcement. By the way, it was Socrates by way of Plato, apparently, who said that. Albie is our in-house philosopher, so I was asking to get the quotes right. We have an announcement. Next Monday night, it's coming up. We have our big 2-hour live webinar called When Family Hurts, Breaking Destructive Patterns. When Family Hurts, Breaking Destructive Patterns. We're going to be looking at a lot of different ways in which you or someone may be experiencing pain in the context of a family. And that could be your immediate family, your extended family, in-laws, grandma, grandpa, uncles and aunts and cousins and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! There's a lot of stuff that happens. And it is painful. And we're going to be trying to understand what the dynamics are that cause that. Also, by the way, if you're going to talk about dysfunctional families, de facto, we're going to be talking about what a functional family would look like, because I don't like to think about dysfunction in a vacuum, because dysfunction is always, the way the Bible would put it, there's an ideal, the way things ought to be, and we fall from that ideal and that gap in there, the way we ought to be doing it, which would feel good, to the way we're doing it, which doesn't feel good. That is where we have fallen from where we need to be. And so we're going to be talking about, what makes a family work as well. So the good thing about this event is, even if you're not in a very painful family, it's going to be a little bit about the dynamics of family that make a family work well, and the dynamics that when they don't happen, then you get into the dysfunction and what that looks like. So that is actually what we will be doing. So sign up by going to boundaries.me/family, boundaries.me/family to get signed up for that. Now, the event will be live next Monday evening, 5:00 Pacific time. But here's the deal. You can watch it. If you can't make that time, you can stream it afterwards. You can stream it the next day. You can stream it a week later. Those of you who do watch it, you can keep streaming it as many times as you want to go over and over it again. And that's what all of our workshops are like. Once you register for them, they become available to you because we think that learning is not a one-shot deal. And then later you might want to share it with other family members or friends or whoever. And we also will provide pretty extensive notes that come with it that you can use as kind of a playbook afterwards in your ongoing growth. Invite your group, invite your family if it's safe to do that. That could get interesting. You got some really dysfunctional family members that you're trying to figure out how you deal with all their toxicity, and you invite them over to watch the event with you. Now that might be a reality show. I have some producer friends right there in Beverly Hills that if you're going to do that, call me. I'll send a camera crew maybe. Anyway, that's what we're doing. Sign up boundaries.me/family to get signed up for that. All righty. We are going to do what we always do while the calls are coming in at 844-940-2774. I'm going to talk a little bit about the thought for the day, and where these thoughts come from generally is it's either, situations I'm involved in. I spend most of my waking hours in some setting, working things out with peoples and families and companies and executive teams and boards and company cultures and family system, just life stuff. That's what I do, right? And sometimes I come across certain issues that I think, I'm going to talk about that one with our tribe here. And then other times it might be a piece of research that I'm reading or something else. Well, this one is a combination of both. And it came from, I was reading some stuff in the book of Proverbs, and it reminded me actually of a situation I just run across in a consulting situation. And that reminded me of a side issue. And I want to talk about the side issue first, because some of you are people of faith, and as I am, and some of you are not. You just enjoy the information on the program, the different dynamics we talk about that have to do with life and relationships. And my contention is they're always the same, that I think God designed the universe. He sent us an instruction manual. It's got pretty much everything in there about the dynamics that humans find themselves embroiled in. It has all the answers too. But if you're not a person of faith, you'll be able to relate to these dynamics. But one of the reasons that this hit me is a lot of times when people a lot of times I get in these conversations about God, whether it's on airplanes or in an Uber or with a friend. And a lot of people kind of have weird views about God, like he's some, religious retail artist or something, like he's selling little as a chain of religion stores, which is pretty goofy, I think. Even though there aren't a lot of those, I don't think that's what he's trying to do. God's not into religion. Religion came to replace our relationship with God. That's what the Bible says. We were in a relationship with God, and it was a relationship with each other, and we were naked and unashamed, if you remember the way the story was. And then we said, God, I don't want you, and we rebelled, and now we got problems with each other, and we're lost on our way. And what did he do? He sent religion. That's what the law was, to tell us a bunch of rules, tell us how to behave. And then at the end of the story, he comes back and Jesus said, all those rules are really about two things. They're about relationship with God and relationship with each other. He said the whole law and the prophets can be summed up into two rules: love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and love your neighbor as yourself. Well, having said that, what I'm trying to say in a sub point here, I hope you can follow the progression of this meandering initial thought before I get into the real thought. Is that, listen to this list. God is not one of those goofy religious creatures. God really cares about pretty much the same things that you do. And I was reading this list. If you want to know something about somebody, if you're talking about a friend, you say, what are they like? And you talk about what they love, You say, and he or she, they really hate this or that, right? You can tell a lot about somebody by what they hate. Well, here's a list that the book of Proverbs tells us that these are 6 things that the Lord hates and 7 that are detestable to him. Now, you tell me when you listen to this list, if this isn't kind of like a big chunk of the whole field of psychology and the stuff that it embroils itself in. This is why I love my work, because every day I get to go into psychological research and I feel like I'm in church, at a good church at the same time. So, are you ready for this? Now, tell me if you've ever run across this kind of stuff in your life. There are 6 things the Lord hates and 7 that are detestable to him. Number 1, haughty eyes. Haughty eyes. Have you ever known anybody with haughty eyes? The raised eyebrow is another term God uses about this. In other words, people that are arrogant and know-it-alls and look down at you, judge you, condemn you, criticize you. It's that downward arrogant glance. We're doing a seminar, a webinar Monday on family dysfunction. How much family pain comes from somebody that thinks they're the freaking know-it-all? And they look down on everybody else in the family, like your opinions are wrong, or they don't count, or I'm better than you, or blah, blah, blah. So that kind of started to say a bad word there. Ticks got off. He doesn't like that one. How about this one? A lying tongue. He hates that. Lying tongue. How much of your life issues have been caused when you've been lied to? I mean, betrayal. You think you're dealing with one reality. I remember a woman saying one time, I could deal with him, talking about her husband. I could deal with whatever the issues are. In her instance, it was financial problems. He kept covering them up, and another shoe would drop, another shoe would drop, another. She goes, I can deal with anything. I just never know what reality is. Tell me what reality is. I don't care how bad it is. I just need to know where the bottom is. So we can stand on the bottom of the pool. That way I'm not going to fall. If you know where the bottom of the pool is, I know how to get up, right? But I need to know the bottom. Haughty eyes, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. Hands that shed innocent blood. People that hurt people that are innocent victims. How many of you can identify with being an innocent victim at some point? Somebody hurting you and you didn't do anything to deserve it. God hates to see that. He hates it. How about this one? A heart that devises wicked schemes. A heart that devises wicked schemes. You ever know anybody that's conniving? They're always trying to figure out and they're kind of scheme to do that. Maybe it's in your, it might be in your business, it might be on your team, it might be in your family, and they're scheming, and somehow, you know what that looks like. They're not transparent, they're not open, they're not honest, they're not trying to do what is good. He says here, devising wicked schemes. Devising a scheme might be great if you're throwing a surprise party for somebody, but not devising a wicked scheme that's going to hurt somebody, or, you know, get somebody excluded, for example, or something painful. Feet that are quick to rush into evil. How about impulsivity into destructive behavior patterns? How much pain gets caused because people's feet quickly rush into evil. Quickly rush. I mean, think about it. And let their addictions just drive them. You know, you could use those same feet to run to a recovery meeting or run to get help. But feet that are quick to rush into evil, it's just going to cause more destruction. And then this one, a false witness who pours out lies. Any of you ever had the experience of being lied about? It is just not fun. It's not fun. Especially do anything in the public. I've read some I've read some things about me or what I say or write or believe or whatever that I read them and I go, who are they talking about? I don't even have a clue who they're talking about. I would never believe that or think that or say that. You've experienced that in your life too, and it's just terrible to be lied about by a false witness. And then remember I said all this was kind of like a little side path today because I want to talk about one of these in a little longer than the others. But I've actually talked about the others for a long time, so I'm gonna have to shut up and go to the phones here in a second. But the one I want to talk about was the last one. It says there's 6 things that the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. The last one is this one, and this is the way I think it. I think I'm in the NIV here. The way that it puts it, a person who stirs up conflict in the community. A person that stirs up conflict in the community. In other versions, it might call this a divisive person who divides people. Here's the way the New Living Translation puts it. I think it is. New Living Translation puts it this way. The God hates when people sow discord in a family. All right. Now we're hitting close to home, right? How about divisiveness in a team or in a group of friends? But I like this one, discord in a family or discord in a community. It's interesting. The Bible talks a lot about forgiveness and being patient with people and forbearing and going through a process to help them, when they're struggling. And obviously we believe in that. And, anybody that's ever worked in very difficult situations knows that they're not easily resolved and it takes a while, right? And I always wondered why and I'm pretty sure it's in the book of Titus, where Paul says, now think about how many times you hear that we should be patient and long suffering, right? Why did Paul say, I'm gonna look this up. I'll tell you where this is. Yeah, here it is. It is in the book of Titus. It's in chapter 3, verse 10. It says this: reject a divisive person after a first and second warning. It says warn them one time, then warn them a second time, and after that, have nothing to do with them. People say boundaries aren't in the Bible. You need to read the Bible. If people are causing divisions among you, Paul says just stop relating to them. Why? Now, that used to not make sense to me. When, before I really started to work with people and understand the kind of character that is divisive. And this little thing I want to talk about that stirs up, issues in a family or in a team or with friends. When somebody has an intention, see, the reason Paul says don't keep working with them is because they're not saying I've got a problem. You work with people to get them to say they have a problem. That's why he says warn them once. Now you've told them, they should be aware of it. And once they do it again, warn them a second time. And after that, see, now they are knowingly. Now, that's a key thing to learn, people. If somebody's doing something destructive, like they're talking about you to somebody else to get the two of you to hate each other or be mad at each other or turn you against somebody. What does the psychological world call this? It's called triangulation. It's when you have a conflict with somebody or don't like somebody or whatever, person A with person B, but instead of talking to person B, person A goes and talks to person C and tells them how bad person B is. Well, now B and C have a problem with each other, and B probably doesn't even know it. And worse than that, A is trying to form a little side union over here against person B. How in the world is that going to create anything good? So then I started to understand why Paul says very strong boundaries against somebody that is intentionally trying to turn people against each other. That's why good relationships, and as the good book says, for example, in Matthew 18, you got a problem, person A's got a problem, person B, go talk to person B. And it says if person B doesn't listen, watch this. You can go read it, Matthew 18, starting in verse 15. It doesn't say go talk to person C about person B. It says go get person C and take them with you to talk to person B. Do you see the difference in that? See, that's not dividing. That's an attempt to come together. Let's all talk about this together. Then we can clear up any miscommunication or misfactualization. I think I might have just made up a word. I remember one time I was negotiating a sit-down meeting with two seemingly warring entities. That's probably about all I can say. And I'll never forget, one of them was a very experienced, wise person, and we sat down at the table to resolve the conflict, which they ended up doing very well. It became very public partly because of his wisdom and the way he handled himself. He said, okay, so let's begin. Let's try to start from the same set of facts. So here's what you understand. Here's what we understand. But let's try to make sure we're starting from the same set of facts. See, in a divisive relationship, nobody's interested in starting from the same set of facts. In fact, they're trying to hide the fact that they're talking about them from the other person. So here's what I want you to do. Here's why I bring this up. When somebody does this to you, you're the one getting talked about, okay? Or somebody comes to you to talk about the other person. It is our duty to not be a divisive party and join the strategy. It is our duty to try to have it come together. Be undivisive. Be undivisive. How do we do that? Well, first thing, let's start with the same set of facts. You know, you came to me to talk about him, and why don't we talk about what you think him did to you? And then we can sort of start there. And then you become a facilitator to try to work out the conflict with your sister or brother or, coworker or whoever. You're not joining the divisiveness. See, when we become, this is why gossip is so destructive. Now, here's what I don't want you to think about triangulation. If somebody's got a problem with person B and they come talk to you about it, it's not gossip necessarily to be talking about it. If you're talking about it in the service of trying to resolve the conflict and helping coach them to go back to that person directly. But if you're just joining in that false intimacy of talking about another person, that's not helpful. So one of the things I always say to people when that happens to me is, have you talked to this person about it? And many times they say, no. I said, well, I think you're going to need to go talk to them. If you can't resolve it, then come back and then I'll try to help you with it. If it happens to you, then unless there's good reasons to not do this, sometimes it puts some people in danger and you have to be careful. But what I like to do is pick up the phone and call somebody and say, you know what, I heard that you're upset about something with me, and I thought I'd call you and kind of try to understand it. What's going on? And you try to always come back to the directedness, because divisiveness is bad. Divisiveness is bad. It's really, really bad. Never gets to anything good. It was Abraham Lincoln quoting Jesus when he looked at this country and said, a house divided cannot stand. That's divisiveness. And what we need today in the big picture is people that are not trying to divide, but are trying to make bridges and reconcile and come together. Sometimes, obviously, I mean, I'm not a politician who could do anything about that, but we can do it on an individual level, can't we? We can try to not be divisive in our own little circles around the Thanksgiving dinner table or the coffee machine or wherever it happens. So, a couple lessons today. This book called The Bible's pretty good psychology book, don't you think? That's a pretty good list. What we got there? Narcissism and addictions and victimization and wow, a lot of kind of personality disorders, family breakdowns, family systems, all right there in 1, 2, 3, 4 verses. How about that? Let's be the kind of people that doesn't cause division, A, but doesn't enable division, 2. Number 3, doesn't allow division to continue. Number 4, somebody that tries to contain division. And number 5, better than all 4 of those, is someone that tries to unite instead of divide. Blessed are the peacemakers, he said. So there's our word for the day. Where's it going on in your family? Time to address it if you can. Speaking of family, we'll be talking about family dynamics in the webinar this coming Monday. So go sign up at boundaries.me/family to talk about when family hurts. When family hurts, breaking destructive patterns. November 15th, coming up, 2-hour live webinar. If you can't be there live, sign up for the live one. You can stream it afterwards, but you got to sign up for it to get there. Okay, let's go to the phones, and we're going to talk first of all to Alina, who watches on YouTube. By the way, if you're new to the program, you can catch it on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, or download it as a podcast. And that's how you can find out what's going on here. Alina, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome. How can I help you?
So I've been reading the Boundaries and Dating book lately, which has been really great. And this part really stood out to me, where different types of loneliness are described. So
Mm,
it prompted the question for me, which is basically, how can I work on a chronic emptiness, I guess, that seems to go deeper than, healthy
mm.
relationships even.
And say that phrase again. It seems to go deeper than healthy relationships. Is that what you said?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Tell me what you mean when you say it goes deeper than healthy relationships. Do you mean that like just normal friendships are not resolving the emptiness? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, so in the book it talks about like there's the one type of loneliness where it's like you need a relationship with God and with others like friends and whatnot, but then there's another type that's like this chronic emptiness where no matter, even if you do have like that love in your life, it's like you can't receive it, and it's like there's this like brokenness in your soul that needs to be repaired.
Yeah. And you can relate to that. You feel that?
Yeah, especially like I'm at a point in my life where it really feels like I have everything that I should need, even things that like I've dreamed of, like the relationship with God, just all around, and it's like it's still there, and it's like I still like have this impulse to fill it, and I just don't know, even with like the internal work I've done, it's like it's just so pervasive.
Yeah. Well, it's a really, really, really important question. Not only in the dating sphere, but I want to talk about that one for a second. A lot of times people um, will kind of experience singleness as lonely, and then will try to, they think if I had a relationship, it's going to solve the loneliness. And really, that just doesn't, by and large, that does not happen because usually out of loneliness is when people make some of the worst decisions, and who they pick. But we ought to be, you ought to be choosing people from a place of groundedness and deep connectedness. That's kind of probably what the book said. But here's the problem. And sometimes we can have I'd say three things, maybe as I talk about this, but I want you to write these down, at least three. Sometimes there's an ongoing internal emptiness because of a lack of availability externally of the kinds of relationships that would fill the emptiness. Okay, now you were saying you have healthy relationships, right? Well, a lot of times we can have healthy, and I hate this word, but I'm going to use it and forgive me, okay? Because there's problems with the whole inner child stuff as well, but there's some truth to it. That we can have when we think of adult relationships. A lot of times people don't include in their adult healthy relationships, they don't include tasks and activities that really have to do with very regressive moments where we are regressed in those relationships to kind of a childlike position where we're very needy. That's just kind of like not what people think about in the frat house, right? or or in their peer relationships. But in order to resolve emptiness, because emptiness, I mean, if you are empty, that means something's got to be poured into you, right? It's like a pouring water into a cup. And we can't receive unless we can go into, and especially if it's a chronic childhood, been there for a long time, childhood kind of emptiness, that kind of requires going into a pretty dependent state sometimes. It might be sadness or mourning or needing or feelings like that. And that requires certain kinds of people in our lives that can actually go there with us. And sometimes you have healthy relationships, but there aren't people that you can call in that kind of dark moment that understand it. So sometimes what you need to resolve that is a really good therapist. It doesn't just do inner work, but is resolving inner work through the connection in that relationship that can actually heal a lot of that. So that's number one. Do you have the people in your life who can go there into that inner emptiness with you? Number two, sometimes it has to do with there's compartmentalized parts of us internally. You got good people on the outside, but there's parts of us that are walled off that aren't accessible, like some of those needy, broken parts that aren't accessible because of trauma and other things like that. And in our healthy relationships, it's sort of like that part's gotta, it's like water off a duck's back. You know, the love that people are pouring in doesn't get there because it's hard for us to go there. So sometimes we can block receiving love. Paul wrote about this in 2 Corinthians 6. He said to the Corinthians, look, we've opened up our hearts and our lives to you. And like in exchange, he said, I speak as to children. That's that regressive part I was talking about. He said, I speak as to children, open wide your hearts to us as well. And sometimes we're afraid to be vulnerable enough to resolve the emptiness. And then thirdly, and then I'll ask you if you can relate to any of these. Thirdly, there are internal personality dynamics that we have that can kind of minimize our abilities to do this, like devaluation is a defense mechanism you hear a lot relating to emptiness, because love's available, but we devalue it. There's an automatic voice. Well, they wouldn't really love me if they knew me, or they really don't understand, or they really don't care. And the love is available, but we kind of devalue it, or we devalue our need. Well, I shouldn't need that, or. So that's kind of three things that can keep that going. Can you relate to any of those? I know I talked a long time.
Yeah, I think I can relate to most of those in one way or another. I think with the whole like dependency that can be healthy sometimes, an issue that I've run into in the past is how to work through maybe some of those traumas or like previously unhealthy dynamics in a healthy context without just like reenacting it again and again and just kind of like sabotaging, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that's what happens.
So trying to like identify the type of people that I can do that with. And for context too, I don't really have any family around where I live. And that's tough as well.
Well, that is tough. But I'm assuming you mean biological family, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is oftentimes, I'm not going to say rare, but it's close to rare, I think. If people really have a lot of trauma and hurt that they've had for a long time, many times that does involve the family that helped kind of either produce that or sustain it or something. And generally they need a new family that's not biological. When you get to be an adult, you need family you can choose, right? You need a spiritual family, a community around you. And many times where you're going to find the kind you're talking about is people that have gone through similar things and have a deep empathy for it. So I would suggest that you get a good therapist that understands this kind of thing, and you try to find a network of structured relationships, like a good therapy group or something like that, where people would understand it and begin to look at those three categories. All righty.
Sure. Yeah, that's very helpful. Yeah.
Where I would start. Thank you for your call. I really I hope that you can find healing for this quickly. The feeling of emptiness, I think, is one of the worst human experiences that there is. I think it's just a terrible, especially when it's chronic. I'm going to gift you. We have a webinar. Thank you for your call. I'm going to let you talk to Albie, and I'm going to gift you. We have a 2 or 3 hour webinar about healing our brokenness. It's available for the rest of you. If you go to boundaries.me and go to the store, you can see that one up there. But I'm going to gift that to you, Lena, because there's a lot of dynamics we talked about that are expounded upon. there in much deeper ways. Okay, let's go again on YouTube to talk to Leslie, who's calling us from Texas with a dating question. Leslie, I love dating questions. Come on, give me a good one.
Oh, hi, Dr. Cloud.
Hey
I
there.
had to switch off speaker really quick. Hi.
What did you have to do really quick?
Okay,
Wait a minute. What
I had to switch off my speakerphone. I didn't want to be having feedback.
You know what? I know what you were
so
doing. I know what you were doing. You're like speed
you might
dial.
know what I'm doing.
You were speed dialing a bunch of guys, asking them out, right? And that kind of
Right.
you're going
Yeah.
through your numbers. You got your dating numbers. You got your
The black book. Yeah, old school.
There you go. What's going on?
Yes. Okay, so my question is, so I'm divorced, done a lot of healing work, done a lot of I've studied under Dr. Townsend, so done a lot of processing groups and just a lot of stuff.
So sorry. Oh my gosh, how are we going to undo that? Oh my gosh.
That's a whole group session.
No, I hope everybody knows I'm kidding. I'm talking about John Townsend, very good friend that we wrote a lot of books together, and anything that you anytime you get a chance to interact with him, I'm sure is very helpful. So you've done a lot of work.
Yes.
So what is the question?
So I'm getting ready to start practicum. I'm really busy with grad school and all of that, but I kind of don't want to work the How to Get a Date Worth Keeping program, only because I'm really busy. But my question was, well, if someone asks me out, I don't necessarily want to turn them down. But I don't necessarily want to get, you know what I mean? Like, because it might be a nice person, it might be fun.
No, I don't. I do not know what you mean. If you're about to say, I don't want to turn them down, but I don't want to go out with them.
It's that I don't want to go like long term. I mean, or if it developed long term, how do you not get to, like, how do you do that in a way where you're not necessarily have time to be?
I do what in a way? Put it in one sentence. What is it? What is it? I don't want what?
To get too attached. You know, like to date in a vacuum. Like you had said, don't date in a vacuum.
What? That has nothing to do with getting attached or not. Dating in a vacuum is about when you're dating and you have no friends in your life and you're looking to get so you get over attached.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't think that would necessarily apply. No. So I have a good support system.
You're just saying I'm too busy for a relationship and I don't want to get deeply attached.
I'm too busy for going on a lot of different dates with a lot of different people, and relationship, maybe not. I don't really care because it doesn't apply. This is more like a hypothetical. So it's what do you do?
Wait a minute, you're saying 4 different things. You told me you didn't want one, and then you said, "Oh, I'm open to one. I just don't want to have to look around for it." What are you gonna call it? Uber?
Right.
Something. Have them drop one off.
Sorry. No, because I go on meetups and stuff with friends and. Sorry, I didn't mean to say I'm not open to one. I am open to one, but you stated it perfectly.
Wait a minute. Now, hang on. You're open to one, but you're busy.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So here's what I've heard. So Joey, I'm glad you called because there's no way in heck I was going to ever call somebody because I'm too busy, and I don't want a deep attachment, but I am open to a relationship, but. I don't think I can spend any time with you. And how's that sound?
No, it's like, I'll go out with you, but I don't, can't promise anything. Really busy.
Whoa. There's a moment of clarity.
Yeah.
I understood that sentence. I'm Joey.
Okay.
So now, okay. I'm you, you're Joey, you asked me out.
Hey, Leslie, how you doing? I was kind of wondering if you wanted to go out maybe like this weekend, if you don't have anything, if you're open.
Sure. Where you want to go?
I think I was looking at an event on Facebook, and so I thought that might be fun to do.
Cool. What time? Okay, now hit
Well,
pause.
it's
Look.
all right, all right.
All this happened is some guys called you and asked you to go out. Why in the world, at this stage of things, do I even need to be concerned about any of this stuff? I didn't hear anything about a wedding ring or deep attachment or taking you
Because I have anxiety. because I'm an anxious type of person.
Yeah, so far.
So I overthink.
Yes, exactly. So far, there's no problem. You're going out on a date. Big deal.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Now, give me the conversation where it gets problematic for you.
I think if I guess if somebody wanted to be in a deeper relationship and I don't know them very well.
Wait a minute, stop. Why would you get into a deeper relationship if you don't know somebody well? That's what dating is.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. That I wouldn't want to. Yeah.
Well, that's an oxymoron. A deep relationship with somebody I don't know well. You're talking about, I'd look at it and say,
true.
Hey, Joey, I don't understand you. You're talking about a deep relationship and we don't even know each other. What are you smoking? I know a drug rehab center I can send you to. Listen,
okay.
Leslie, I just want you to listen to how many contradictions.
Okay.
There's all or nothing contradictory polarities going on in your head.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to go back and re-listen to it.
Yes. Go back and re-listen to it.
Yeah.
Go back and re-listen to it. And why don't you, somebody ask you, it sounds like, I'm going to try to cut through all of the algorithms here and give you what I've heard.
Okay.
Sounds like you're very open to going out and enjoying people right now. You don't know if you have enough, libido in your life. And what I mean by that is life force.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sounds like you're studying to be a therapist. And one of the things that therapists have to always look at is, do I have enough, for example, do I have enough energy to take on this kind of client, for example? If you have somebody's significantly depressed and I got a bunch of really difficult, do I have that in me? Do I, people have to say, do I have it in me to have another kid? Do I have it in me to work a second job? And what you're saying is, I'm in graduate school going all this. I don't really have a lot of time to give to a relationship right now. And if you can understand that, Joey, I'd love to go out with you. And then over to your buddy over here on the side, you say what you said to me, but I kind of like Joey, and dadgummit, he might screw up my plan because this one might be a keeper. That's what I've heard you say.
Right. Kind of, yeah.
Yeah, kind of, because it's contradictory. All right. Hope that helps.
Yeah. No, that's good. I will, I will go back and listen to this.
Why don't you just budget your time and energy? I'm really not looking for a relationship right now, but I'm open and tell somebody what I was waiting for was for you to give me the, you've gone out a handful of times, and now Joey saying, he thinks he wants to take this to the next level.
Okay. But you've already covered that base. So,
well, what did I say
in your example about how
you hadn't said that to me yet?
Not right. No. But I think you kind of mentioned an example of what I could say.
Like what did I say?
Came up.
I don't remember that.
Well, I thought I heard you say if I got to budget my time, and then I would convey that to them. I'm really busy, but I don't mind going out every now and then, that kind of thing.
Yep. Well, no, hang on. That's not exactly right, because you told me that you're really busy until the right Joey comes along.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So if
Yeah.
you're not wanting to go further with Joey, then that's not what you have to say, because Joey is starting to fall off the love cliff here, right?
Mhm.
So at that
Mhm.
point, you might say, Joey, I really enjoy going out with you. We had some good fun times. I don't think this is a relationship that I want to go exclusively or deeper in. I think we're
Yeah. Okay.
friends, and
Okay.
probably what it would always be. And if you want to keep going out and having fun, then great. See, that's very
Okay.
different than if you think Joey's, kind of a possible.
Right. Okay.
That's when I said,
Okay.
you go over to your friend over here and say, I think this might be a possible, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then I
Yeah.
don't know, maybe you tell Joey that. Okay. I hope that's
Maybe.
I hope that's helpful.
Yeah.
Call us back.
Thank you.
Call
And
us-
by the way, I love listening to your show because I feel like I'm getting ready to start, and I'm like, it's just so helpful. It's almost like shadowing a
Hmm.
therapist. I love it.
Oh, well, thank you, and good luck in your studies. And I hope you go help a ton of people. And I'm sure if you get trained
Yeah.
with John, then it'll be. By the
Yeah.
way, I should give a shout out. And thanks for your call, Leslie. John Townsend has
Okay.
he's got a couple of master's degrees that, not degrees. He has, he's got those too, but of programs. I think they're master's programs. It might be a doctorate. I'm not sure. In counseling, that you might, if you are a counselor or wanting to be a counselor in training, you should check those out. All righty, let's go to Becky, who is calling us from Boston, listens on Facebook. Becky, welcome to the program.
Hello.
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 How
So
can I help?
I'm just calling because I'm just really having a hard time in my marriage and just trying to figure out kind of what direction to go in, although I feel like I'm kind of at the end of my rope. Just my husband and I have been married 25 years and have probably been in counseling 15 to 20 of that with various counselors. And I just feel like he is a very irrational person, and it's very hard to be emotionally connected. I just feel there's a lot of verbal, emotional, and mental abuse. He's never been physically abusive, but in many other ways.
Is that continuing for 25 years?
It has been, and I feel like in a lot of ways that I have enabled that behavior because I keep making excuses of, well, he'll see that the kids are actually doing good things, or, well, we just need to get through this stage, or things will get better when, and
But is
they don't.
Is it being addressed?
I mean, in theory, like I said, we have been
Well, addressing
counseling
something is not a theoretical concept only. It actually has behaviors and actions attached to it. In other words, if somebody's being abusive, that there are steps that are being taken to not tolerate that, right?
Right, and I feel like recently I have finally, set some boundaries and done some things, but in his estimation, he, in addition to, doing counseling, he does attend, CR, Celebrate Recovery, and he has a mentor that he meets with sometimes, and he has a men's group that he'll meet with, but then the verbal abuse continues, and it
Well,
just
hold on. When
it
it but
baffles me that
when it continues, what do you do?
I've gone to the counselor and said, this is what he said, and it's hurtful, and it's not true, and it's not good.
Right.
And
he's sitting right there
Yeah,
with you and the counselor, right? You're in marriage counseling.
yeah.
And so what
And
and then what happens?
well, the counselor has mainly just been having us read books about anger, because that's a lot of what this kind of revolves around, because he has
Well,
volatile outbreaks of
but
anger. But
books on anger can be very helpful, but how about a book on not tolerating angry outbursts? See and here's what I would go talk to the counselor about. Is what you're talking about is you're talking about a long-standing pattern that you have addressed, as you've said this is hurtful, right? It sounds like you've done that,
yeah,
right? But
yeah,
but it's still being tolerated. And so generally, we look at a progression generally in terms of problematic behavior. And that is when somebody does something that hurts us, step one is to tell them that was hurtful to me. Would you please not do that? Right?
right. A lot of times he blame shifts.
I'm not talking about him. This is step one. Okay.
Right.
So at that juncture, either they will say, gosh, I'm so sorry. I would never want to treat you that way. I won't do that again. And then you solve the problem. And if it happens again, then that's something we do the same thing again, because they're owning it and they're trying. Remember when Jesus said, how many times do you forgive somebody? 7 times? No, 70 times 7. If they're in the process and they're working on it, because we're talking and things are getting better. But if somebody doesn't own the problem, then, and this is the part I think y'all need to talk about, you and your counselor and your husband together. If they're not only owning the problem, I can only expect for it to occur again.
Right.
Why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it, right? Because he's not saying that he has a problem. So if somebody doesn't have a problem, we're not going to expect for the problem to go away, because they don't have a problem in their mind.
Right.
So at that point, that's when we go to the next phase of maybe the counselor can help him to see that he has a problem and own it. And then you can say to the counselor, and this is a conversation I would think might be helpful with you and your counselor and your husband. I've talked about this before. It keeps happening. Dr. So-and-so, what do you suggest I do when this happens again? Because it's hurting me and I don't want to continue to expose myself to this. And then at that point, there's a number of things that can be done. And that's when you say, okay, Joey, here's what I'm talking about. And if it happens again, then I'm going to stop the conversation, because that's hurtful to me. And I'm going to go in another room until we can talk about it without you yelling at me or calling me names, or I'm not going to talk about it at all. We're only going to talk about it with Dr. Jones here, or I'm going to go stay at my sister's, or whatever it is. But if this is going on and on and on, then at some point, all you can control is yourself, and you can limit your exposure to it. And sometimes when that happens, then somebody kind of begins to get it. So that's the next step I would take, is I go talk to your counselor with a specific question. It's not, what we're talking about here is not ending it. What should I do when it happens? And then maybe you could get to some limits that could contain it. Does that help?
Yeah, some. It just is the behaviors. We have had that conversation with the counselor, and developed kind of a hand signal sort of thing that, enough's enough kind of.
Yeah.
And he just railroads, and it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
But again, let me say it again. What you keep talking about is what he does. Okay. He's not listening.
Right.
I want you to ask the counselor what you can do. And when a hand signal isn't working, then to limit your exposure to what he's not stopping, that's where boundaries come in. Boundaries are always about ourselves. I'm going to have boundaries on my exposure to this. So that's when you start to think about how you cannot be exposed to this anymore. So that's what I want you to ask the counselor. Say the hand signal isn't working. What else? What do you want me to do? And it's going to involve some sort of limiting your exposure to this. And I think y'all got to talk about, something that's able to, it's going to be hard for you to be out of pain if you're still being exposed to it in some way.
True.
It's going to be hard for him to own it too. Unfortunately, we're up against the clock. I have I'm going to put you on hold, and I'm going to give you a free registration to 2 different webinars that we have in the store. If you go to boundaries.me and look at the store there, but you're going to get these for free. One of them is called The Art of Confrontation, which has various levels of confrontation. And when that doesn't work, what do you do then in it? And the other one is what is the title of our marriage? The Marriage Equation. There's another one called The Marriage Equation, which goes into a bunch of this as well. Unfortunately, we are up against the clock again. I want to thank my callers today for sharing your situations with us, loneliness and dating and contradictory internal worlds that don't come out in a way that can find us. Sometimes when we have contradictions in our head, like Leslie was talking about, we got to get to know what we actually want and then express that, and we can get to a better place. And then Becky, who was really hurting with the continuous pattern and what can be done about that. Thank you, callers. You help us because we learn when you share your lives, and my hope and prayer and wish for all of you, as well as the people who are listening, and myself included, as we learn that we can get to a better place tomorrow. So that's what I hope happens. Speaking of tomorrow, it's not too many tomorrows until next Monday when we're having that webinar, When Family Hurts, Breaking Destructive Patterns, next Monday evening, 5 p.m. Pacific, 2 hours. You got to sign up for it though. So go to boundaries.me/family to get your registration code to be able to view it. And then you can view it then or watch it later or as many times as you want. And I think that is about it. Shout out to my team, guys. Right, go just bomb the customer service email box, because you know what I did today. I was meeting with Jessica and Greg and Albie, who kind of make this show work. And I said, you guys ought to come on the show, and I want to introduce you to the audience so they know who we're talking about here. And all 3 of those chickens just looked at me like, I'm not going on there. Not today. So I want you to write them some letters and say, we want to meet you guys, and see if they do it. I got the upper hand on you guys today, didn't I? Jessica, Greg, Albie. See, we're going to get a bunch of people, and they're going to get you to do this. Okay, guys. That's it. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.